Today's episode is brought to you by No Thanks to You.
Like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to see more.
1987 was when Katz put out our Major Principles Storing Up Trouble full-length album. That was our first full-length album. Before that, we only had the EP, The Curse of Prince Hated, on Upstart Records in 1983. So Katz put out our, and I think we made some other demos along the way or whatever. But then the band broke up that year because of musical differences. And I had been playing in my electronic two-man goth band, Hellflower. It was me and my partner, Ray. We used a drum machine and a Roland Juno 90 keyboard, which was the same keyboard that the Cars used on their early albums. We used it for keys, and we also attached it to a MIDI to a sequencer and used it to do the bass lines. We had a lot of songs about artificial intelligence.
Welcome
To a brand new
Captain Marcus McConwell and crew, capered privateers of the Royal Crown, also known on the high seas, Captain Anarchy. You and your crew stand accused of treason on the high seas against the American colonies. How do you plead for you and your crew, sir?
So when I was in high school, I was taking advanced English and history classes because I was bored as hell. After taking the IQ test, I was just like a point or two below being tossed into the category and
Welcome
part of,
to
like,
your
the chess
room.
club. But the person who gave me the IQ test at the school or whatever said, like, you're obviously a lot smarter than a lot of kids. You're not a genius per se or anything like that. You're so smart. There was no test to evaluate that. Obviously, there was just an IQ test to test you academically. So we're going to recommend that you be in advanced history classes, like college level classes. And I was like, well, yeah, that sounds great, because junior high school just felt like a rerun of high school, only they wanted you to remember, like, trivial details, in my opinion.
I mean, come on.
I like to use this example. Columbus discovered America in 1492. In high school, they want you to tell them the month and the day.
Who cares?
And it's bullshit anyways, because we now know that Columbus didn't discover America anyways. The Vikings did, like, 500 years before that.
You're admitted to a mistake. What would I...
It felt like they just wanted you to remember more details about...
Bullshit. Bullshit.
And so it was boring to me, and I was getting into punk rock, hooking up with girls for the first time in my life, and, I was playing in a band. And making new friends on the west side, making friends in Hollywood. Being a kid and growing up and finding myself, because...
Consider the life of a teenager. Huh? You have parents and teachers telling you what to do. You have movies, magazines, and TV telling you what to do, but you know what you have to do. Huh? Your job, your purpose is to get accepted, get a cute girlfriend, and to think up something great to do for the rest of your life.
Early teens are your developmental years that ultimately decide who you end up growing up to be as an adult. So I was doing that, acing those classes, without even really trying. And after a while, I started deciding that why do I need to be an A student?
Who fucking cares?
So I started screwing off and ditching school more, partying, flaking out on my homework. And my grades went from A's down to B's, down to C's. Sometimes I would catch a D or an F here and there, and I didn't care. And I was supposed to graduate class in 1985. In 1984, I was in 11th grade, and I was friends with the government class teacher, like this really hot chick, and we used to talk all the time about political stuff and whatnot, and she might have just been being friendly, but she seemed a little more than friendly, you know what I mean? And I knew that when I went to 12th grade that they were going to force me to take government class, and she was going to be my teacher, because she was the only one that taught government at school. And being an anarcho-punk, I knew that she and I were going to end up butting heads, and she was going to end up hating my guts and flunking.
That thing you pulled in the calf today was pretty severe.
Yeah, well, the extreme always seems to make an impression.
And I didn't want it to go that way, because I liked her, she seemed to like me, we got along great.
Anything less would be uncivilized.
So, at the end of 11th grade, we let my band play at the high school twice. We played once out on the back basketball courts, and
Only a word.
that I don't think they pulled the plug on us that time. We actually were even able to bring along our brothers and students over Bedrock, even though they were too old to be on a high school campus. The second time that they let us play in the front yard of the school. One of our band members, Danny Tunick, he lived with his parents right across the street.
Nice.
Chain link fence around the school. And we were over in I was getting ready, and the whole band went over there and started warming up. So I come skanking across the street, and then we play our set, and at the end of the set, we go into our cover of Wild Thing, and I had changed the lyrics all up and made it into, like, naughty lyrics with foul language and whatnot, and the crowd's going nuts, the kids are going crazy, there's a mosh pit going on, all that.
Shit!
Power up.
And the principal, he pulls the cord on us and tells me to go see my counselor, tells me that I'm going to be getting suspended on the week of finals, so that I wouldn't be able to take my finals, and I would flunk out of one or more classes, because he knew that I had screwed around the last couple years, and they had already told me that if I flunked one class in 12th grade, that I would have to repeat 12th grade all over again. And I knew the government was going to be that class.
Come on!
He told me to go to my counselor's office. I'm like, I'm not going to my counselor's office. I'm going to Mr. Neeson's office. Fine, go to Neeson's office then.
Yeah.
Mr. Bash, I forget what his first name was, but I'm sure he would have been a fucking Trump follower by today's standards or whatever. Right-wing conservative, neo-Nazi, authoritarian figure.
Excuse me. What did you say?
I didn't stutter. And I was, livid. Hey, man, eat a couple of my special magic cookies.
Stars are pretty, aren't they?
So I ate a couple pot cookies, drank the milk, listened to the Doors, and then we talked about it, and he's like, oh, man, we're gonna, go around right now to, all of your teachers, and we're gonna make a deal for you to come in after school and take your finals. Screw Mr. Bash. That way you'll get to take your finals, and as long as you ace them, then you will have passed 11th grade, and you can move on. Jerry Neeson was a great dude. He was a great counselor.
Men have feelings too.
You know what the name of that hippie teacher's name was in Beavis and Butthead?
No.
Elliot Van Driesen. Very similar to the teacher you have.
Yeah, it's too funny, right?
Today, I want to show you how to realign your mind-body energies through simple meditation, okay?
Before I continue, let's bring on today's sponsor. No thanks to you. Yep, no thanks to you. We don't get any fucking hype, anything that really matters. And
we did. We went around, we talked to all my teachers. They were all cool with it. They'll let me take my 11th grade finals after school. I passed all the tests, and then I just decided, you know what? I'm not going to take 12th grade. So I took a California proficiency exam test to prove that I knew everything that I needed to know to be able to just skip 12th grade and go to college. And that was that. I aced it. The following year, in 1985, instead of going to 12th grade, I was going to West LA College for about the first 6 months with my then friend, Jim Watkins, who I also was studying Taekwondo, Korean Kung Fu, and
Chinese. The Korean is the most perfect creature ever to sanctify the earth with the imprint of his foot.
So we were studying those 3 styles right down the street from the high school. Our master was like an 8th degree black belt from Korea. He'd been trained since he was like 3 years old. What? Four guys tried to jump him in the elevator. He beat the shit out of all 4 of them, and he's the only one that walked out. True story.
Get on with it.
Yes, get on with it!
And mostly just taking philosophy and film and English and creative writing.
But why? Why would you do that? Why would you do any of that?
We wanted to be novelists. We wanted to write medieval fantasy novels, science fiction novels, and horror novels. And we were going to co-write them. We were already working on a few. And we wanted to maybe be screenwriters. But after 6 months at West LA College, it became apparent that while we're in college, we wanted to also meet girls. And we weren't meeting any girls at West LA College. At the time, it was basically a predominantly black college at the time. The black girls really interested in us.
You must have thought it was White Boy Day.
There weren't any white girls or other girls of color or anything like that were our age around that were interested in us because we're punk rock guys. So we transferred to Santa Monica College. There were lots of like new wave and punk and goth type girls that went to that college of all different colors.
Nice.
I actually ended up on the dean's honor roll because I got A+ in every class that I took.
Well, hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
I took beginner and intermediate voice lessons there and finally learned how to actually properly sing. My biggest regret was not taking guitar and not taking music theory. And I had some guitar classes in high school, so I sort of knew and whatnot, and I actually got much better at guitar and bass on my own. Just by the end of the 80s, I was able to play bass pretty solidly and sing while I was doing it with a wireless headphone mic, which I did in my electronic goth band Hellflower. And obviously, you know, because I was a writer, I was able to write lyrics. Obviously, in the early years, there were no other bands around that did that kind of music, except for Big Black. Like, we were just doing what we did, you know, and, you know, just being totally creative and unique, and we were opening up for, you know, the other goth and death rock bands of the day, like Scream Christina. In a place called heaven, the days are such a bore. You know, that went on from, you know, for another year or two, but it was in 87, my last and final year of junior college, I met Brian Perera at school, who palled around with Chris Hazard, singer of the LA glam band Funhouse. Pretty popular band on the Strip, had a great album. And at the time, the two of them had the jet black Nikki Sixx teased out hairdos with the bangs that cover their eyes so you could never see their eyes. You saw a nose and the lips, and they both wore bright red lipstick. And they were all into the glam scene, the Sunset Strip scene, which I really didn't know much about. I mean, I hung out on the Sunset Strip in the early 80s, going to Whiskey to see bands like Black Flag and 45 Graves playing together. And once the 80s glam rock and glam metal scene became a thing and took over, I wasn't hanging out there anymore. I missed most of that era on the Sunset Strip. Me and my friends liked the early Motley Crue, the first two albums. I saw Motley Crue in 83, Universal Amphitheater. It was awesome. Oh, yeah! They went out on the road for 2 years straight with Kiss when Kiss was making their comeback from their disco rock failed era with Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr. Hey, all you rock stars, sleep the day away. You're okay. Hey, all you actors in your limousines, you're okay. Whoa, this is Hollywood. Ronnie on the Rock used to play Livewire and talk about how Motley Crue was like this new band that was kind of different. I still have it on a cassette, and they were basically considered to be, you know, part of the punk scene in a way, and we sort of viewed them as being like the new updated version of the New York Dolls, with a metal influence, which in a way kind of made them better, sort of. And Rat, they were called Mickey Rat, but we were into punk rock. You know, glam rock and glam metal scene grew and sort of took over the Strip, and the punk element moved more towards old Hollywood and elsewhere in LA and Orange County, and the glam scene took over the Strip. I stopped going to the Strip because I liked some of those early bands, but once the other bands started coming out, like Poison, Master Pussycat, Pretty Boy Floyd and all that, I didn't know anything about those bands at first. The Crew did their third album. They did the cover of Smoking in the Boys' Room, and we saw the video on MTV of Vince Neil dressed in pink spandex with pink lipstick. We were just like, oh my God, what happened to these guys? We thought it had become a pirate butt rock poodle stuff, lightweight aluminum pop rock metal, or whatever. We just didn't get it. We didn't appreciate it. It alienated us. 83 onward, we were also getting introduced to early Metallica, early Slayer, early Anthrax, we were like, dude, that's like real metal, and I don't know what happened to, like, you know, Motley Crue and these bands, but
whatever.
We just avoided that stuff like the plague. However, in 1987, was hanging out at Santa Monica City College with Brian Perera and Chris Hazard. They were friends with the guys from like LA Guns, and they turned me on to it because they, you know, they liked old punk, and so like Chris Hazard had like a little MG sports car, and at lunchtime sit like parked like on a side of a hill overlooking the ocean, and we would smoke out and listen to the first Poison album. And he was the one that first turned me on to it. And at first I was kind of like, well, I mean, this sounds okay. I wasn't totally sold on it, but he started to sell me on it. And Brian Perera, at the time, I believe he was living with his parents in Westchester, and he had silk screening in his garage. I believe, I don't know if it was the house he was renting or if it was his parents' house, I forget. And basically he was bootlegging T-shirts of all of the Sunset Strip bands of the day and selling them to the rock shops on Hollywood Boulevard. That was his gig. That was how he was making money. And going to school at Santa Monica City College. Yeah, isn't that a trip?
Yeah, it's funny how he started off doing bootlegs, then started a label, and now they are a film company.
He had an opportunity to buy Cleopatra Records, I guess, which was a goth label at the time, and then kept it goth, but slowly started to introduce the glam bands, because as time went on, a lot of those glam bands, like LA Guns and such, didn't really have big major label record deals anymore. So he signed them up to Cleopatra to do albums.
So basically, he's the LA hair metal equivalent to Nitro Records.
Go ahead, tell the story for everyone.
What happened was, when he started Nitro Records, all his heroes, bands like The Damned, Religion, you name it, all their shit was out of print. So he reprinted everything on CD. The record store that promoted them was Bionic Records.
Right.
And Bionic Records is still around. You know, they don't have three locations in Orange County. They just have one small location in Bonner Park down the street from their original Cypress location. Which is crazy, because what's really crazy is the owner is a total metalhead. It's hard to believe because you think of the bands who endorse. Like I bring up punk bands and stuff like that. I don't remember any of it, so I never pay attention to that stuff. I've always been a metalhead. And I didn't know he was the owner until I went the next day because I wanted to drop my magazine. So I found out that was the owner I talked to, which is funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I drop a mag.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way that's kind of a similar story. Glam metal guy that went to Santa Monica City College, whose catchphrase back then was always, "For the image, mate."
Yeah, that sounds like...
Everything was for the image. Like, yeah, totally, man, for the image, you know?
Shut up and get to the point!
Yeah, glam metal guy goes from bootlegging glam metal bands from the Sunset Strip's T-shirts to the rock shops on Hollywood Boulevard to buying a goth and death rock record label. And then slowly introducing all of those glam metal bands anywhere you could, you know, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think they did got the licensing to reissue some of those glam metal bands' albums. And they also put out new recordings, new albums by a lot of those bands as well. And they also did continue to put out goth bands, mostly a lot of compilations, I think.
Issue number 19 of Lost Anarchy magazine.
Oh, yeah!
By the way, this issue has more nudity than you can ask for.
Watch videos of people on YouTube reacting to fucking YouTube.
Coming soon to both Lost Anarchy magazine and Get Watch Mojo channels. We got some badass graphic novel reviews. And of course, I'd like to make a shout out to our patron, Count Morivon. My homie from the Rainbow. I'm not gonna say what he does, but this guy is badass. Check out his channel. He does a lot of stuff on satanic poetry and other satanic Bible studies. And also a shout out to one of our other newer patrons, Janitor Jay. I've been a fan of his for years, and
talk about nostalgia, huh?
And of course, shout out to our usual patrons, Ryan Zacher and the Fly Attractor. Later, bitches. I'm asking all you people, because we're living in a pandemic. Check out our Patreon, and linked in the description, as you can tell, and support our cause. We don't get paid for this shit.